Today, I want to talk about something that touches every single one of us, no matter where we come from or what we do. Fear. It's that quiet voice in the back of your mind that whispers, "What if you fail?" It's that invisible wall that stops you from taking the leap, speaking up, chasing the dream, or even just being yourself. But here's the truth. Fear is not the enemy. The real danger is letting fear make your decisions for you. What if I told you that everything you want, everything you dream of, is sitting on the other side of fear? And the only thing standing between where you are now and where you could be is whether or not you let fear take the wheel. Let's talk about how to take that control back starting today. You become what you think about. Fear often begins in the mind long before it ever shows up in reality. It starts as a small, uncertain thought, one that questions your ability, your worth, or your chances of success. At first, it's barely noticeable, but left unchecked, it grows, it gains momentum, and over time, it can begin to shape your actions, your choices, and ultimately, your life. The truth is, we tend to attract what we consistently think about. If your mind is focused on failure, rejection, or loss, you're far more likely to make decisions based on those fears. You hesitate when opportunities come your way. You doubt yourself in moments that call for confidence. You pull back when life is inviting you to move forward. This isn't magic, it's mindset. Your thoughts create the lens through which you see the world, and how you see the world determines how you engage with it. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine thinking daily thoughts of possibility, growth, and resilience. If you wake up each morning thinking about what could go right instead of what might go wrong, you begin to act differently. You speak with more conviction. You take more risks, not because you're fearless, but because your mind is focused on the reward rather than the risk. You begin to align your actions with a future you actually want instead of trying to avoid one you fear. The mind is incredibly powerful. Most people don't realize just how much influence their own thinking has over the outcomes in their lives. They believe that circumstances, luck, or other people's decisions are what define their path. But more often than not, it's what they're telling themselves day in and day out that's shaping their reality. Fear can't grow in a mind that's occupied with purpose. When you give your attention to your goals, your vision, your passions, when you fill your mind with thoughts of who you want to become and what you want to create, fear loses its grip. It doesn't disappear entirely, but it no longer gets to steer the ship. You do. That's why it's so important to guard your thoughts. Be mindful of what you let in. The news, social media, even the conversations you have on a daily basis. All of these can influence your thinking. If you're constantly feeding your mind with messages of doubt, fear, and limitation, it's only natural that you'll begin to operate from that space. But if you fill your mind with positive, empowering, and forward-thinking ideas, your actions will begin to reflect that too. There's a well-known idea that says, stand guard at the gate of your mind. It means you have the power and the responsibility to choose what thoughts you dwell on, and in doing so, you choose the direction your life begins to move. So the next time fear starts creeping in, ask yourself, what am I thinking about? What story am I telling myself? And most importantly, is it serving me or is it stopping me? Because in the end, we don't become what we wish for. We don't become what we hope for. We become what we think about. And if you want to stop letting fear control your life, you have to start by taking back control of your mind. Act in spite of fear. Fear has a way of making everything seem bigger than it really is. It magnifies the worst-case scenario and minimizes our confidence to handle it. But here's something powerful to remember. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. Every person who has ever done something meaningful, whether in business, art, relationships, or personal growth, has felt fear. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who break through isn't that one group felt fear and the other didn't. The difference is that one group chose to take action anyway. It's easy to believe we need to wait for fear to go away before we act. We think, once I feel ready, I'll do it. But that moment rarely comes. Readiness doesn't show up first. Action does. And the act of moving forward step by step is often what creates that readiness. The more we engage with life, the more confident we become. Confidence is built through repetition, through trial, through progress, not through waiting. Think about a time when you were afraid to do something, but you did it anyway. Maybe it was speaking in front of a group, applying for a job, starting a conversation, or making a big life decision. Do you remember what happened after? Most likely you discovered it wasn't as scary as it seemed. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it pushed you forward. And even if it didn't work out the way you hoped, you grew from it. You gained experience, strength, perspective. You learned something that staying still could never teach you. That's the power of action. It cuts fear down to size. What once felt like a mountain becomes a hill. What once seemed impossible now looks manageable. Action brings clarity. It gives us real feedback, not just imagined outcomes. We stop living in our heads and start engaging with the real world. But here's where it gets even more important. When you act in spite of fear, you begin to redefine your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids discomfort and start seeing yourself as someone who faces it. That shift in identity creates momentum, and momentum is everything. One small act of courage can lead to the next. A decision today can lead to an entirely different life a year from now. And let's not forget, most fears are temporary. They're usually tied to a specific moment. The first few seconds of a speech, the beginning of a tough conversation, the initial click of a submit button. Once you push through that first wave, the intensity fades. What felt like a barrier starts to dissolve. But if you wait, if you hesitate, you give fear room to grow. It multiplies. It starts asking more questions, creating more doubt, making you feel even less ready. So the key is not to eliminate fear, but to act while it's still there, to move through the resistance, to remind yourself that fear is a signal, not a stop sign. It often means you're heading in the right direction, that you're stepping outside your comfort zone and into a space where growth happens. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to feel 100% confident. You just need to move. Take the call, start the project, say the words, make the leap, whatever it is, just begin. Because when you act in spite of fear, you weaken its grip. You send a message to yourself that fear doesn't make your decisions. You do. And that simple, powerful choice can change everything. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. Many people think of success as something flashy or far away, like a big house, a famous name, or a sudden breakthrough. But real success is quieter than that. It's deeper. It's not just a destination you reach. It's a direction you choose. And more importantly, it's something you build slowly, one step at a time. True success is the steady, consistent pursuit of a meaningful goal, one that's worthy of your time, energy, and heart. It's not about how quickly you get there, but about waking up each day and intentionally taking a step forward, even a small one. This understanding changes the way we relate to fear, because fear often shows up when we're chasing something that matters. It whispers, what if you're not good enough, or what if you fail? But if you know that success isn't a sudden finish line, but a lifelong process of becoming, then fear begins to lose its power. It's easy to compare your journey to someone else's. We see people on social media with highlight reels and polished stories and assume they've already won while we're still struggling to get started. But success isn't measured by where you are in comparison to others. It's measured by whether you're moving toward something meaningful to you. If today you are just a little closer than you were yesterday, that is success. The beauty of this mindset is that it makes fear manageable. Because if you believe you need to have it all figured out before you begin, fear will always have a reason to hold you back. But if you know that success is built in layers, through progress, learning, trying, adjusting, then fear has no final word. You can begin messy. You can begin unsure. What matters is that you begin. And when your goal is worthy, when it aligns with your values, passions, or the impact you want to have, it gives you strength. It gives you something larger than your fear to hold on to. It pulls you forward when fear tries to push you back. It becomes your reason to keep going. Let's say your goal is to write a book, start a business, heal a relationship, or improve your health. Those goals aren't small, and yes, they can be intimidating. But when you break them down into small, meaningful actions, writing one page, making one call, walking for 10 minutes, you start to see progress. That progress fuels belief, and belief reduces fear. This kind of success, the kind built through daily dedication to a meaningful purpose, is sustainable. It's not dependent on luck or timing. It comes from within, and because of that, it's something no one can take away from you. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for the fear to vanish. You just have to keep moving with intention. It's also important to celebrate that progress along the way. Often we don't give ourselves credit for the quiet victories, showing up on a hard day, learning something new, pushing through doubt. But these are the bricks of real success. Each one matters. Fear wants you to believe that success is this huge, overwhelming thing that you might never reach. But in truth, success is in every step that honors your vision. It's in every choice that reflects your values. It's in the willingness to keep going when it's easier to quit. So redefine what success means to you. Make it something you can work toward every single day, because when you do, fear won't have the same grip on you. It might still be there, but your purpose will be louder. And that right there is the start of something powerful. Don't let the crowd decide your path. One of the biggest sources of fear is not failure itself, but the fear of what other people might think. We hesitate to speak up, to take risks, or to follow our own direction because we're afraid of being judged, misunderstood, or even left behind. It's a deeply human fear, and it often pushes us into a life of quiet compromise. But the truth is, following the crowd rarely leads to fulfillment. Most people are doing what's expected of them, not what truly speaks to them. They choose safety over growth, familiarity over purpose, and approval over authenticity. It's not because they lack intelligence or ability. It's because they've been conditioned to believe that blending in is better than standing out. If you let the crowd define your limits, your goals, and your worth, you give away your power. You start living a life designed by other people's opinions rather than your own values. And that's when fear really begins to take hold, because deep down, you know you're not being true to yourself. You might look successful on the outside, but inside, something feels off. That quiet dissatisfaction is your inner voice trying to get your attention. There's a reason people who choose their own path often feel more alive. It's not that they're fearless. It's that they're guided by something more important than fear. They've decided that living a life that's honest and aligned matters more than staying in the comfort zone. They know that the crowd doesn't have to understand their journey for it to be meaningful. Think about it. Most of the great thinkers, creators, leaders, and innovators throughout history didn't follow the crowd. They questioned the rules. They thought differently. And yes, they were often doubted, criticized, and even ridiculed at first. But they didn't let that stop them because they were focused on something greater than approval. They were committed to growth, truth, and impact. That same strength is available to you. You don't need everyone to agree with your decisions. You don't need a crowd of supporters to take the first step. What you need is clarity on what matters to you and the courage to honor that, especially when it's unpopular. Following your own path doesn't mean rejecting everyone else. It just means choosing not to live by default. It means listening to your intuition. It means asking deeper questions like, what do I really want? or what kind of life feels meaningful to me, and then having the courage to take action, even if it's slow, quiet, or goes against the grain. It also means being okay with being misunderstood. Not everyone will see your vision. Not everyone needs to. What matters is that you see it, that you believe in it, that you are willing to walk toward it, even if you're walking alone for a while. Fear thrives in environments where approval is everything. But when you start building a life based on authenticity, something amazing happens. Fear starts to loosen its grip. You no longer need validation to feel secure. You no longer wait for permission to grow. You trust yourself more. And with that self-trust comes a deeper kind of confidence, one that isn't shaken by opinions or trends. So if fear is holding you back, ask yourself, is it really fear of failure or fear of not fitting in? And if it's the second, remind yourself that you were never meant to live someone else's life. You were meant to live yours. The crowd might be loud, but your inner voice, that's the one that leads you home. You already have the power to change. When fear creeps in, it often whispers one of the most dangerous lies we can believe. You're stuck. It tells you that things are the way they are, and that no matter what you try, you won't be able to change your circumstances. It convinces you that your past defines your future, that your mistakes are permanent, and that your dreams are out of reach. But none of that is true, not one word of it. You are not stuck. You are not powerless. In fact, the power to change your life has always been in your hands. The problem isn't that you lack ability. It's that fear has blurred your vision. It's made you forget who you are, and more importantly, what you're capable of. Real change doesn't start with something outside of you. It doesn't begin when someone gives you permission or when all the conditions are perfect. It begins the moment you decide, the moment you say, I don't want to keep living this way, and you take one step, just one, in a different direction. That step might be small, it might be uncomfortable, it might even scare you. But that's okay. Change isn't about sudden transformation. It's about consistent, intentional shifts, day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. Too often, people wait for something external to give them a signal to start. More time, more money, a bigger opportunity, a green light from someone they admire. But waiting is often fear in disguise. If you constantly believe you need something more before you begin, you'll never begin. Because there's always going to be something you don't know yet, something you haven't mastered, something you wish you had. But here's the truth. People who change their lives don't do it because everything lined up perfectly. They do it because they made a decision to move anyway. They refused to keep living in a story that didn't feel true anymore. They realized that growth was uncomfortable, but regret was worse. And so they acted, not because they weren't afraid, but because they finally believed that they deserved more than what fear had been offering them. And you do too. You deserve to experience your full potential. You deserve to wake up excited, not dreading the day ahead. You deserve to express who you really are, to use your voice, to follow your curiosity, and to build something meaningful with your time. These aren't luxuries for the lucky or the gifted. They are possibilities for anyone who chooses them. And yes, that includes you. Now, change doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It doesn't mean denying pain or skipping over the hard stuff. In fact, it's the opposite. Real change starts by facing the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It means being honest about what's not working, about the habits that are holding you back, about the excuses you've been making. And it means deciding without shame to write a new chapter from here forward. This isn't about blaming yourself for the past. It's about claiming responsibility for the future. Responsibility is not the same as fault. You are not at fault for every difficult thing you've been through, but you are responsible for what you do next. You get to choose what meaning you assign to those experiences. You get to decide whether you carry them as a weight or use them as wisdom. When you take ownership of your life, fear starts to shrink. Why? Because fear feeds on the idea that you have no control. It wants you to believe that life just happens to you. But when you shift your mindset from victim to creator, something powerful awakens inside you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I create from this? That's when your energy changes. That's when doors start to open. Now, let's talk practically for a moment. What does taking back your power actually look like? It looks like setting boundaries around your time and energy. It looks like making choices that reflect your values, not just your fears. It means surrounding yourself with people who support your growth instead of draining your spirit. It means replacing self-judgment with self-respect. And maybe most importantly, it means being willing to start again as many times as it takes. The path won't always be easy. There will be setbacks. There will be days when fear tries to creep back in and convince you to give up. But that's okay. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be committed. You just need to remember that every single day is another chance to choose differently. One of the greatest freedoms you will ever discover is this: you don't have to be who you were yesterday. You can forgive yourself, you can reset, you can pivot, you can learn, you can grow. You already have everything you need to start, not in some distant future, not once you have it all together, right now. You are not broken, you are becoming. And becoming is messy, it's uncomfortable, but it is also beautiful, because every time you act in alignment with the person you want to be, you're proving to yourself that change is not only possible, it's already happening. So, don't wait for fear to let go of you. You let go of it. Decide to stop giving fear the final say. Decide to stop handing it the pen that writes your story. You are the author now. You have the pen. You have the power. You have the choice. And the life you want is waiting, not for someone else, not for some perfect moment, but for you.